Hey everyone, what's going on? It's 2 minutes to review. It's Matt.
And it's Zach.
Longest album review in under 2 minutes wins. We are back with another new album. It seems like we've got a lot of new music coming out in June. And this one anticipated by a lot of people. It is the brand new one from Queens of the Stone Age. And I gotta say, I love the album title, In Times New Roman.
For all of you Word Doc nerds like us. Well, Matt, I'm going to start off by making you feel old.
Of course you are.
I'm going to do it. 25 years ago, Queens of the Stone Age released their self-titled debut. And
of course they did.
Yeah, 25 years. They're Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ready. And since that album came out, Josh Homme went from being the underappreciated guitarist of Kyuss to one of the most, dare I say, influential, but even just beloved frontmen of one of the most consistent, sometimes challenging, but definitely beloved rock bands. I mean, when you think of rock in the past 20 years, it's fair to say that Queens of the Stone Age really helps kind of solidify the sound of just in-your-face rock. They've always added some funky little fun elements to their music, but for the most part, fans have loved how Josh and the band has just delivered solid, straight in-your-face rock and roll. They've created such a unique sound that when you listen to certain bands now, you go, oh, you can tell they're hugely influenced from Queens of the Stone Age. Oh, that they listen to Songs of the Deaf over and over again. Like, they're very influential in the rock scene.
Well, to be fair, who hasn't listened to that album over and over again?
That's just a phenomenal album. And that, I really felt old last year when that turned 20 years old. I'm like, no, stop. No, that one I hated to remind myself of. But it's been also a few years now since Queens of the Stone Age released any new music, since Villains, which was a very beloved and critically acclaimed album. So a lot of fans are wondering, could Josh and the band continue their winning streak with like Clockwork, continuing on with the acclaim and continuing to churn out albums that both loved by fans and critics? Could In Times New Roman continue that winning streak? We'll share review our thoughts within 2 minutes. But first, a special shout out to Lucky 13 Beard Co.
Log on to Lucky13 of the number beardco.com. And if you've ever been curious about putting a little bit of oil in your beard, making it feel a little bit softer and smoother and just smell epic, well, I think you should do it because these guys are the best right now, at least in my opinion. I've tried a lot of beer bombs and oils, and they make me feel the best, hands down. And we also have our own beard oil with them. It's called the Lemmy. It smells like bourbon, tobacco, cola, and leather, inspired by Lemmy from Motorhead. Of course, all the things that he loved. So if you're wanting to try it, we're going to give you 10% off. Use the code EFP10 at checkout. You're going to get 10% off of your entire order. Lucky13, the number beardco.com.
And Josh Homme, I see you out there. I know you're listening, and I see your beard that you're growing in. It looks very nice. I bet you could really use and appreciate this Lemmy beard oil. So please pick up a bottle for yourself. So Matt.
So Zach.
Longest album review in under 2 minutes wins. Would you be surprised if I'd like to go first?
Not at all. That is pretty much par for the course at this point.
Well, thank you. Count me down like clockwork.
3, 2, 1.
So I think the best way to kind of characterize this album is that it combines some of the more direct, crunchy riffs of Era Vulgaris with the darker overtone of Villains. Paper Machete and Negative Space are probably two of the better standout songs, really just showing that they can still produce slick but gritty rock tunes. But the problem is that the production overall is just kind of choppy, dare I say, and it ends up hurting the overall experience. I mean, especially when there's the segue between the rock sounds and the orchestra elements, specifically on songs like Carnavoyeur. I mean, I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to create almost like a psychedelic feel, as if it's from the 60s or 70s, and maybe as if it's even like a 70s spaghetti western, but it just comes off as really poor production and just isn't mixed well. And it's a shame because there's some interesting ideas, but it ends up really hurting the overall production, especially when you listen to some of the past albums that just have really pristine, amazing work on it. And that kind of segues me into my overall thinking that, yeah, this is an enjoyable album, to the degree. It's no thrills, really. You know what you're going to get, but it really also lacks any significant moments that made me go, whoa. Because at least with the past albums of Queens of the Stone Age, there's always been at least one moment that would give me goosebumps upon listening. And I'm thinking even like with Villains with the song Fortress. Unfortunately, this album's failed to do any of that for me. So sure, you might enjoy listening to this album if you're a big Queens of the Stone Age fan, but just go in with low expectations.
And we have a time and your star rating out of 5.
Out of 5, a solid 3, unfortunately. Maybe I really was just going in with high expectations. It's an enjoyable album. As long as you go in with very low expectations, with not really expecting much, that you almost kind of know what you're going to get out of Queens of the Stone Age at this point. To me, so something that we didn't mention before is that this album was actually self-produced by the band. So unlike past albums, it really was done by them, and they had an outside support for mixing, or at least mastering, I should say. And unfortunately, you can kind of tell that they need someone who knows a little bit more behind the board, who knows how to actually mix an album. I couldn't tell if they wanted to be a garage rock band or if they just didn't know how to sound like a rock band in the studio. And that's not something you want from Queens of the Stone Age at this point in their career. So unfortunately, sure, it's enjoyable, but I'd be lying if I said that the production didn't leave me wanting more. But Matt,
okay,
what say you? Are you ready to give your review, to see if you can give a review in under 2 minutes?
No one knows.
Oh, good one. 3, 2, 1. Go with the flow.
So I feel like Queens of the Stone Age did come back in a very interesting way on this new album, both lyrically and sonically. I think that this is one that Queens of the Stone Age fans have been waiting for. First off, I love the album name. I'm a computer nerd, so In Times New Roman, right up my alley. I actually also like the artwork that they have on the singles too, and I really kind of hope that that's going to be the album cover, because it is really cool if you haven't seen it yet. The album, for me, for the first time in a while, it feels like Queens of the Stone Age really aren't forcing many things that they're doing on here. I've lost interest on Queens of the Stone Age albums in the past because it just felt like they were forcing it to a degree. But on this one, the music comes off as effortless. Now, don't take effortless for simplicity, because the album is full of great lyrical and sonic moments that Josh and company, they weave together magnificently, in my opinion, in the songs like Paper Machete, Negative Spaces, and Emotion Sickness. And if you've ever wanted a 9-minute Doors-inspired Queens of the Stone Age song, well, you're going to get it on here in straight jacket fitting. Now, as my co-host alluded to, the production, it comes off as kind of sloppy. Josh, he's great on the album, but when there's a lot of elements that are going on, and Queens of the Stone Age usually do have a lot of elements in their music, Josh gets lost. The lyrics get muddied up, and it's really kind of hard to hear him sometimes. Also on Sicily, it sounds like, that was one of the last things that they did, and either they were rushed for time or they just forgot that the song wasn't mastered or mixed correctly. It just feels disjointed when it comes to the production. However, these minor missteps on this album, I still think it's a great album, and I even think it may even be in contention for album of the year.
Wow, so you definitely enjoyed it more than me.
Yep.
Out of 5 stars, what would you give In Times New Roman?
I give the music 4 and an extra half star for the title.
Okay, so let's be honest. You were already madly in love with this album the second you heard the title.
No, I'll tell you why. Because I was like 3 or 4 songs in, and I was like, I don't know what the name of the album is. Oh, it's In Times New Roman.
So you just admitted you barely did any homework going into this. Great.
No. Don't mistake me getting into the music for not doing anything. I got it. I looked at it. I said, okay, there's 10 or so tracks, and I hit play, and I just kind of put it down, and I didn't really read anything else that was there. I just kind of let it play. And then I went back and looked at the title because I was,
So if you'd like your album reviewed by Matt Gamba, email him and he'll just listen blindly.
you know what? That's the best way to listen to it, though.
Yeah.
Go in with no expectations.
So one thing I want to say, because I think it sounds like you agreed with me though about the production part of
Yeah.
it. But something that you mentioned about how Josh does like perform well. I will say from a performance standpoint, John Theodore, who's been the drummer for the band now since 2013, since like Clockwork. I love his drumming. I love him as a drummer. He's performed with Mars Volta, with a lot of other bands. But I've kind of felt that with On Villains and some moments on this album. It's almost as if he was kind of like held back and really not allowed to go forth and really show what he's capable of. But then there's songs like Paper Machete and Negative Space where they're like, all right, you're free. Go deliver some goods. Josh finally let some of the other band members just kind of, actually play or not feel restrained. And it's not just the Josh show. So from a performance standpoint, it definitely is intriguing and a good listen. And I think that's what makes this album enjoyable, to the point that I actually think I'd like to hear them play these songs live. And I bet you that they'd actually probably sound better than they do on this record, because the production really, as you said, sloppy.
It is.
It's like disappointingly sloppy, to the point that I'm like, I don't know if I can even listen to this anymore.
It's not a complete mess, right? Like when I say sloppy, it's like if you just got the screwdriver and just twisted the screws just a little bit more to fine tune this thing, you'd be fine. But it sounds like this was somebody's project. Like after they went through school and they figured out how to, mix and master an album, and then they got in the studio and they completely forgot everything that they learned, and then they tried to read it in a book, and it's like, I don't quite know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna fake it.
I mean, I guess that's nice if you're in high school starting a band, but this is Queens of the Stone Age here. This is, you expect better than what they brought. And that's, to me, it's like, maybe that'd be forgivable of some other bands, but like for Queens of the Stone Age, like, no. I want like a game across the board. And
well, you want that from any major band though.
Yeah, but I think Queens of the Stone Age, even more so, dare I say. I think just because they usually are a lot more reliable when it comes to just quality sounding albums. Whether or not you really like the song, sometimes the production usually is on par with, like with their past stuff, or at least it's good enough that makes you like really into it. Like this album, I don't know. I just, for as much time as they had in theory to produce something, it really did feel rushed. Like if this was like, oh, it's been only 2 years since Villains came out. All right, I get it. They want to keep the ball rolling here, but like it's been 6 years. I'm trying to do math here. It's been 6 years. I mean, I get it. Things have happened both personally for Josh, plus, the world. For an album called In Times New Roman, didn't really sound like a lot of time was spent.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have anything else clever to say about it. They just needed to admit that they needed help, and I'm sure they would have got it, and nobody would have thought the difference, unless they just really didn't want to pay for it and they wanted to try to do it all themselves. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of as to why they didn't take help and they try to do it all themselves. And it really is a shame, because I would love to hear, some of the elements that they had, spaced out a little more. Like maybe if you pan one a little left, one a little right, put Josh maybe a little bit higher above the mix, a little louder, drop, just something to break it up, because at times it does feel like it's just this big chunky sonic wall. And sometimes stuff like that sounds good, but in this case, when you're trying to do a lot of, I feel, creative and artistic things with your guitar and your sounds and just the ideas that you have with a song, and you don't mix it right, it just comes across as a big chunk of blah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you said about like how it's like someone learning how to produce something and then kind of forgetting and trying to do it quickly. It does almost sound like a high school project. Someone's, senior year project was to produce an album, and this is what they did. And you know what? Maybe for an aspiring artist, this is pretty good. But like I said, it's Queens of the Stone Age. We expect a little bit better. And I think, to your point, there's a lot of interesting ideas that probably could have been pulled off better if done I don't want to say the right way, but if done with like if at least someone with a little bit more experience behind the board, someone a little bit more experience in the studio, and hell, even like I mentioned, one of my qualms was that the way they go back and forth between rock and orchestra, like it sounded so annoying how like, oh, you just literally are fading to a recording of an orchestra and then fading real quick back to the rock band. Give me a Queens of the Stone Age album where the orchestra is actually in the studio with the band. I would actually love to hear Queens of the Stone Age do a S&M record, essentially, where they work with an orchestra, do a live concert with an entire orchestra of all their songs. Like, that would actually be pretty freaking phenomenal. If any rock band could probably pull it off, it could be them. But like I always say also, no one cares about what we actually have to say. The importance is the scores. Whether you or I were able to give the longest review in under 2 minutes. So, Matt, what was my time? Was I able to give a review in under 2 minutes?
Well, you did, and you came in at 1 minute and 47 seconds.
Ooh, time to spare. Time and pace. Well, Matt, I guess in this case, the tortoise won because you went over 2 minutes by 6 seconds.
That's okay.
Meaning that I won. Ha 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 ha.
Well, you may think I ain't worth $1, but I feel like a millionaire. It's okay.
Good for you for adding in puns. Well, what do you think? Do you agree with Matt and I's take? Do you think that this actually is a masterpiece from Queens of the Stone Age? Or do you kind of agree with me in that it's a little bit underwhelming? Let us know on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even TikTok. Haha, we're hip now. At Epic Footnote. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel to hear more reviews like this. And once again, thank you to Lucky 13 Beard Code.
Log on to Lucky13, beardcode.com. Use that code EFP10 at checkout. 10% off of your entire order, including our Lemmy Beard Oil, bourbon, tobacco, cola, leather. It smells fantastic. You're going to feel fantastic. Use it, and I guarantee you, you're going to love both the beard oil and the guys at Lucky 13 Beard Co. Lucky13, beardco.com.
Thanks so much for listening. And thank you in advance if, you decide to support us by going to our Linktree page and clicking on the merch link and buying a t-shirt from Epic Footnote or a coffee mug or a hat. Things that would support us so that we can continue to doing these podcasts, but also as a way to kind of just promote us using your own self to let your friends and family know that you listen to two guys who talk about music on podcasts. So thank you in advance for that. But even more specifically, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your support. We hope you join us for another episode real soon.
Just go with the